you're going to swim or you're going to drown. But if you swim, then okay. But if you drown, they'll pick you up, they'll dry you all up, and then they'll teach you what to do. And I was 22 years old at the time.
Wow.
They put you in predicaments that they don't care how old you are. You're going to learn, and you're going to learn by trial by fire, basically. And that's how I learned a lot of the skills that I have today. I learned basically from the military.
Well, hello, everybody. Dr. Ron Oberstein, president of Life Chiropractic College West, and welcome to another edition of our Life West Leadership Line. Today, I've got a dear friend, man. We go back, Ed, we go way back. I got Dr. Ed Cordero. I don't think Ed needs an introduction. I'll give you a brief introduction, Ed. Ed graduated in 1993 from Life Chiropractic College in Marietta, Georgia. That's what it says on his diploma. Right away, he went to Puerto Rico and practiced for a year there, and then went to Boynton Beach, Florida, and was there for 19 years. And then during that time period, he was involved politically and in all different organizations, from the ICA and from DE and the Florida Chiropractic Society and all kinds of other stuff. And then he got tapped on the shoulder and was put his hat in the ring to go to Sherman College of Chiropractic and became the president. He was the president for 10 years there. And that's a long time. People don't know the average life of a president is 6 years, and this is in higher education. It's a long time. And then from there, he went and he was at Max Living for a year and a half as a CEO. And now he's the founder and president of Cordero Consulting Group, CCG, and just making we'll get into that hopefully, but just making some really cool things happening in our world of chiropractic and the business world. And Ed, welcome. I hope that didn't sound like a eulogy. A lot of times they sound like eulogies.
I just want to say something to you. First of all, it's great being with you, Ron, and obviously with your people here. But I used to have an afro. I actually have a picture that I had an afro, before I got into all this. And well, you listen. Hey. But yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't believe how long my hair was, right? But those are stories people would never believe. But and I tell me about it. We'll be looking back at this in 30 years, going, "Wow, we had a lot of hair."
Wow, we look good. Yeah, we look good.
I know. Hey, I find it fascinating. You were raised in Puerto Rico, right? Mm-hmm. And then you came to the States, and then you went back to Puerto Rico, and you got a really beautiful, just in a nutshell, kind of talk about that, what led you, so to speak, move into education, move into chiropractic actually, and then how that worked.
Right. So when I left Puerto Rico and we came to the States, I lived in Philadelphia. I was a young person at the time. My family moved after about 7 or 8 years. They went back to Puerto Rico, and so I went to college. I decided that I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to see the world and wanted to do different things. So I went ahead and joined the Navy, and I ended up then joining the Navy and, finishing up in the Navy. And I was looking for a career. And at the time, my wife, Debbie, was seeing a chiropractor, and I had no idea what chiropractic was. But the chiropractor she was seeing just blew me away. His passion, his purpose, his ability to do what he did really enamored me. And that's basically how I got interested in chiropractic. And I started looking at schools, and the closest one at the time was Life Chiropractic College in Atlanta, Georgia. I was living in West Palm Beach, Florida. And so it was a piece of cake. It was a no-brainer. I made the decision, went to chiropractic school, and here I am 31 years later.
Yeah, it's so crazy too, because obviously you came from the military, right? Mm-hmm. And you at what age did you move to Philadelphia? Your family moved to Philadelphia?
I was 2 years old when we first moved to Philadelphia. And then when we left Philadelphia, I was about 10 years old, 11 years old. So about 8 or 9 years. We
to Puerto Rico. And then so you basically did your middle school, your high school, your college, all in Puerto Rico, and then you joined the Navy, right?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I don't know, man, just being in the military, obviously, I think you and I both know as presidents, it's leadership, right? It's really what it's about. But being in the military, your leadership skills must have been just, I don't know, what do they do? How do they send you to leadership training, or is it just?
No, it's on the job training. They teach you and they throw you into the deep end of the pool. And I'll give you a prime example. So I was an aircraft mechanic, And our airplanes, what they did is they chased submarines, the Russian submarines, and we would drop off these sonobuoys into the ocean, and then the plane would just follow them for hours and hours, and they would play a game. It was a cat and mouse game. The submarines knew we were chasing them, and we knew that we were chasing the submarines. And so we did a mission, and this is my first actual leadership role. And we do a mission, and so when we get to the place that we were supposed to land, one of the engines broke down. So here I am with my superior, and I'm assuming he's going to do all the work. He comes over and he goes, "All right, Ed, you learned all about these different things. This is your job, and it's all dependent on the mission. If you don't get this done, mission doesn't get done. We got some issues." And he just threw me into the deep end of the water, Ron. And that's the type of stuff. It's like either you're going to swim or you're going to drown. But if you swim, then okay. But if you drown, they'll pick you up, they'll dry you all up, and then they'll teach you what to do the next time. So I think that was just very valuable information because they put you in spots. And I was 22 years old at the time.
Wow.
They put you in predicaments that they don't care how old you are. You're going to learn, and you're going to learn by trial by fire, basically. And that's how I learned a lot of the skills that I have today. I learned basically from the military.
Yeah. So, and I love that. I mean, listen, I mean, I think everybody knows the chain of command in the military is very strong, and people follow rules in the military. I mean, yes. Let's face it, you could not run a company like that without there being rules, right? And not just rules, but followed rules, because we know there's places that have tons of rules that no one follows.
Nobody follows them.
What's that old saying? Everyone's looking for a leader, but nobody wants to follow, right?
Exactly.
So if you don't mind, let's stay on leadership for a little bit, because, it's such an important thing for everybody, whether they're leading a business, whether it's a chiropractic office or another business, or they're leading a family, whatever it might be. Leadership comes up, their children, leadership comes up in everything that we do. And unfortunately, there is no course for it. And yet there's, maybe it's fortunate because it's on the job training for most people. Remember when your first child was born, like, where's the manual? Nothing came out afterwards. Like, but talk about leadership, about some of the golden rules that you have around leadership.
So one of the things that I learned early on in leadership was this. There's three key things that you should know about leadership when you're working in an organization, whether it's your own as an entrepreneur or whether you're working for an organization or a big company or whatever else. The number one rule is that in leadership, it's all about the organization. You have to place the organization first, and then everything else starts to accumulate based upon what the organization needs. Yeah. The second thing is the people. So you got the organization, you know what the organization needs. Now you're working with the people, and you get the people going, and you train the people, and you teach the values so people can become better leaders. And then thirdly is self. But in leadership, you know this better than anybody for the years that you've been a leader, even before your position as president. What people don't realize is that everybody in leadership is about themselves first, and then maybe the people, and then maybe third, the organization. And so what the military did for me was it put that in perspective. There's an organization that needs to be taken care of. That's the number one priority. So we have to make money for the organization. We have to feed the organization. We got to make sure that organization is there. Then we hire all the right people, train the people so the organization can continue. And then you put self in the equation, because if you're the leader, then you're responsible for raising other leaders, or you're responsible for, the well-being of the organization. But I tell you what, Ron, everybody gets this upside down, especially the new leadership. Us older guys, it's different, okay? But the new leadership, it's all about self. It's about ego first. And I think that those are three key important parts of leadership.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about those is that a lot of times the people in the company, so to speak, right, whether it's an office or whatever it is, it's like, what about me? And I think where chiropractic has been successful, at least in salutogenic chiropractic, the chiropractic that we've been involved with, is that our mission or our vision is much bigger than, our purpose is much bigger than us, right? But it's still about, what about me? And that me attitude has, doesn't take the company anywhere, because it's really, like you said, self-centered, right? And not on what's the vision of the company and what's the purpose. And if people buy into that,
Well, it depends. It depends. I think that most people, if you have a strong leader like you are, like I am, I think that people go, well, wait a second, that's a different style of leadership that I've not heard. And I think that, and then they see the results, the return of the investment on it. They get promoted, they get their training, they get their vacation time, they get their raises or whatever else. And then they go, wow, I never thought this would be a good leadership style, but obviously it is.
Yeah.
But there's another major concept, Ron, and I don't know if you've ever run into this. There's the transaction type of leadership, and then there's the transformation type of leadership. And I think that leaders that focus on just transactions are very strongly just on making sure that the financial component is there. And then you got people that are all transformational, and then they don't have two nickels to rub together. They're seeing 1,000 patients a week, like Dr. Sid used to say, you see 1,000 patients a week, but you're not making any money to pay your bills.
Right.
And so that leadership has to be the balance between organization, people, and self. But then you have to understand, okay, what's important? Is the transaction part of this important, and is the transformation part? And if it is, how do we balance it so we have a well-balanced organization that's moving forward? It's growing, everybody's benefiting, and there's a return on investment not only for the organization, but every single team member that's there gets a return on their investment as well.
Absolutely. And like we talked about before, having policies and rules and really, when the policies are there, we could just do our work. The structure is there, so to speak, right? We could just do our work, and then it's us on a transformational level to do the work how we do it, meaning that, whether someone's an extrovert, someone's an introvert, whatever it might be, how do we become the best that we can be? And I think what you said is so true, because there's so many people who it's easy to gravitate to the transformational side, and no one really likes to deal with the transactional side. True?
That's right. That's right. It's true. And then another part that I think it's important too, Ron, is one of the things that I did at Sherman, I think that was done very well, not patting myself on the back, but I think it was a good decision, is that we had people in positions of leadership, and we didn't even know if those people were qualified to be in that position. So let's say Ron was in this position for 5 years prior to me being there, and I get there and I go, is Ron really capable of being in that position? But there was no metrics for me to know if Ron was the right person for the job. And so we do this, we did, I should say, this behavioral science profiling, which is called the DISC. And there's a whole bunch of different analogies of that. But we figured out what was the normal behavior for that leader in that position. And if it matched, then great, we would then build the leadership more. But if the person didn't match, then we would find a suitable position, which still within leadership, because the person obviously earned that position. And then we would just put them in another position. But just because Ron was there doesn't mean that Ron is the person that needs to be there to help us grow into the next steps of what we wanted to do. So it was very hard for me to do this profiling, to sit down with my teammates and go, hey, Ron, I love you to death, but you shouldn't be in this position. You should be over here. Let me help you. Let me guide you. Let me give you the resources necessary so you can continue to grow as a leader. And by doing that, Ron, everything took off, because now we had a sense of purpose. We knew everybody's strengths and skills and weaknesses and the opportunities and the threats, the SWOT analysis. And you know what? The team started to work better because we took the responsibility as leaders to create a map and to figure out who is who and are they plugged in the right positions.
Yeah. And really what I'm hearing, Ed, is that get the right people on the right seats on the bus, right? And it doesn't mean that if they're not in the right seat, they get kicked off the bus. There's always a seat, and it's funny that you say that, because, when just looking at our profession, right? Just in chiropractic, we have people who sit at the front desk who might be introverts.
That's right.
That might, and we might have people in the back office that are empaths, so they might be doing the financial dealings, right? And it's like the exact opposite, what you want. I don't want an empath doing my finances, because they're going to say, oh, it's okay. No problem. Oh, really? I didn't know. Just take care of yourself. Don't worry about paying, whatever it might be. Whereas, we want someone who's more empathetic at the front, right? Greeting people, bringing them in, having them, this is where you need to be. And someone else in the back, right? More transactional. It's so crazy because, but like you said, you have to find out what that job description is, right? And what you need for that position. And I don't think we ever define that.
Well, and look how easy it is. If you get a job description and you do the behavioral testing on the potential employee or leader in that position, and you tie them in together, it'll tell you right off the bat, nope, this person is this and this person is that, and this position is definitely. So there's a saying. It may sound negative, it's not, but there's a saying that says you as a leader, unfortunately, sometimes you're put in a predicament that you need to be fast to fire and slow to hire.
Yeah.
And the reason you're slow to hire is you want the right person in the right position in the right thing, because as you have an executive team around you, you give them their responsibilities, you delegate, and everybody gets their job done. And then everybody comes together cohesively to see if the job is getting done. But you as a leader don't have to take all the responsibilities, and you're not the person that needs to do all the jobs. But throughout at least my career, a lot of the leaders that I met, they did it all. They were the doctor in the office that did everything. You know what? And you can't grow in a practice if you're the doctor doing the x-rays and the consultations and the exam and collecting the money and making the appointments. You're going to be stuck, and there's going to be barriers. And I think that that's where a lot of the challenges come.
Yeah, and you're only as strong as your team, right? What's the old saying? Only as strong as your weakest link. But
That's right.
you're the team that you build around you is so vitally important. I was looking at that. There's a question that I subscribe to these newsletters and stuff, and one of the always constantly reflecting back, like, what would you have done differently, right? When you first, like, for instance, I'll ask you the question. So you stepped in as the president of Sherman, and I don't think people realize that it is a 26-hour-a-day job. Like, you really cannot shut off from it. That's why the average life is 6 years in higher education. You just can't turn off from it. It's not because people don't do good jobs, or the innovation, such as you, right? You're an innovator. So you grew and you brought some great things in. You can, that's probably 28 hours a day. Like, how do you sustain that, right? It's difficult, obviously. So the question that came up was, what would you do different, knowing what you know now? And we'll just say this with you at Sherman. What would you do different? It's just strictly managerial or strictly leadership-wise. What would you do different, knowing what you know now, when you first took the job?
So knowing in hindsight now, what I would do is I would have a more balanced life. I didn't have a balanced life. I was go, 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 go nonstop for those 28 hours. I did that for a 10-year period. And then people would wonder, it's like, well, how the heck can you do this and sustain this rhythm? And so I have a wife that's very strong-willed, just like, Dr. Mary is, and she would smack me down and go, Ed, you need some downtime. We need to have some vacation. We need to spend time with the grandchildren. We need to go out and do X, Y, Z. And because of her, she balanced me and allowed me to go and step back and go, okay. So during the latter time of my presidency, I started utilizing that skill set. Let me be more balanced. Let me delegate a little bit more. Let me insulate myself so I don't have to answer all the questions. I can actually have my team members, handle that while I'm gone, and this way be able to come back and be fresh. I was talking to, this is interesting. I was talking to a pastor friend of mine, and I went to his church for many years, and he would take once a quarter, Ron, and he would take 2 weeks off every quarter. And I was like, well, where are you going on vacation? Ignorant, right? He goes, I'm not going on vacation. I go into a study break. I grab all the books that I'm going to preach on for the next couple of months. I do my sermons. I do the reading of books that interest me as a hobby where I don't have time. And I sit in a cabin in the woods or on the beach or whatever. And I do that for 2 weeks every quarter, preparing to become a better leader, to be able to balance my life. And I was like, duh, I wish I would have learned. Somebody would have told me that. So towards the end of my leadership with Sherman, and when I was working with the franchise company, I learned to be more balanced. And now I feel that I'm much more balanced, and I actually I become a better leader because of knowing that secret.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think chiropractors see that in their businesses. Like, you can't go, 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. It just doesn't work, right? And that's why we always took big lunch breaks, right? We'd have kind of like that European, schedule where you go in the morning from 9 to 12, and then you come back from 3 to 6 or 3. Also, because our patients came in and back in the days, in the earlier days, back in the 80s, 90s, the flex schedules weren't around. So majority of people came in after 5 o'clock, right?
That's right.
So if you saw 100 people in a day, you might see, 60 of them might be booked from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
Whatever it might be. I'm making those numbers up. But the balance had to be there, because if they're not balanced, then they burn out. They tank, their capacity goes down, and they wonder why can't I see more people? And I'm a firm subscriber to, to God is good. The universe
Hmm.
won't give you more than you can handle. And if you don't know why you're not getting more, it's because you can't take more, right? It's not going to work for you. And how do
Right.
we wake people up? Like, how do we get people to get into that balance, to get into that groove? What are some of the tips that you have around that?
So I think first of all, everybody has to have a routine. I don't think that chiropractors or professionals or leaders actually get subscribed to the concept of a routine. So I know you've done this for years. I know that I've done this, but I'll share. I wake up in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock, depending on and I've always done that because of the military. You had to be up at by 6 o'clock. You were already working, so you get up at 4, you get up at 5. For all my life since I left the military, I get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, but I don't go to work till 8 o'clock in the morning, let's say. And so you have a couple hours of what do you do? So I get up and I read some motivational things. I'll sit down and listen to motivational speakers. I'll read my Bible. I'll do certain things that I spend a certain amount of time in the morning prepping myself to go do that. I'm a creature of habit. I would practice in the morning and I would come back and I would change my shoes and my socks. And I would put another pair of socks and another shoes and go in there, and because I knew that I was going to be busy, and I always wanted to be prepared. And so I think that people need to start a protocol or process of creating habits that allow you to have quiet time to yourself, to be able to go in there and serve your people, to be able to shut that down and go home and spend time with your spouse, with your children, with your grandchildren. And then right before you go to bed, you may take a little time to review your day or what's the things that you need to do for the next day. And you make a list of things, and then next day starts all over. But watch what happens. Nobody does that. You go to sleep. You ran a marathon all day long. Your brain is going 100 miles an hour. You don't spend time with the wife. You don't even thank the wife for the meal that probably she made for you and took time to make. You don't spend time with the kids, and then you go to bed and your brain is just like on hyperspace, and then you don't sleep well. And then you wake up the next morning, you're tired, you're burnt out, and now you got to go and do it all over again. So I think one of the things that worked for me is creating these processes and these procedures that I followed religiously that allow me to have this balance. And every quarter, I would take a vacation. Now, the vacation run didn't have to be 2 weeks. I could have taken a long weekend, just Thursday through Sunday. Come back, I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to go. So I think that those are some key important things that people, if they get into the habit of doing, I think that they would see some differences.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. We should never have to take a vacation.
That's
If
right.
we get to the point where you have to take a vacation, that means that your vacation, you're going to be recovering. And
Yes.
that's not the kind of vacation you want, right? I mean, you want to go
Mhm.
to wherever, Disneyland, wherever it might be, whatever, Europe, whatever it is, not to recover. You want to go to have fun and be in shape. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, I gotta, the Super Bowl's coming up. I've got to, recover. No, 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 no. You've got to be healthy and pace yourself, right?
That's right.
You brought something up that's so key because, as I'm hearing you talk about routine, right? And we know, most people in business know, no matter what business it is, what they're doing during their uptime, meaning for doctors, what you're doing seeing patients, what what you do when you're in your office.
Hmm.
That's uptime. It's the downtime,
That's right.
right? The non-office time, like you said, every morning
Hmm.
doing this, changing your socks and whatever it is, whatever it is that people do to make themselves more fresh and more balanced, right? And I love it that you said that because there's athletes, like literally professional athletes, who put on new sneakers, basketball players who put on new basketball shoes before a game. And then there's others that have new ones at halftime.
Right.
They 2 new pairs every game that they have, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's just their habit that they do. And I think that's a key thing to success that you talked about is having a habit, right? And having a discipline. And I always broke down that word. I love the word discipline, but when you break it down, it's disciple.
That's right. That's right.
And what did the
Hmm.
disciples do? They
Hmm.
sat, they listened, they learned, and then they went and they did, right? So they're kind of like
Hmm.
be, do, have. It's just so incredible that it's not hard.
It's
It's
not.
but we can get pulled off. You ever hear this? Like, oh, I don't have enough hours in my day to do all the things. Give them
Yeah.
48 hours, they're going to say the same thing. You can accomplish it all, right? You know, I love it, Ed. I mean, listen, I mean, some of the keys that you just dropped on the discipline and on the habits and that stuff, so they get into the habit, right? They start seeing their business grow. Talk to me about scaling, because obviously people don't understand fully what does it mean to scale a business, and that's such a huge thing.
So this is a great question, and thank you for asking that. So there's seven things that you do to scale a business. Okay. And obviously we don't have time to go through this, but I just want to give you a concept. So there's seven things that need to be done. Most companies, most organizations, most chiropractors would do step one, step two, and step three. And they're successful, right? When they get to step three, they grow too fast. So they skip step four and step five, and they're at step six.
Yeah.
And now they're stuck. They can't grow. They can't make more money. They can't, and they just can't figure it out. And they're doing all the right things, the processes, the procedures, the downtime, their balance, everything, but they're stuck and they don't know. So they come to somebody like me or like you, and we go, well, duh, this is simple. Let's go back to step three.
Yeah.
And let's see where you missed. Because step three, you jumped to step six. Let's go see what step four. Step four might have been hire more people to delegate. So now when you can scale the business, you can grow the business, you can see more people, you can make more money, you can open up more offices. You have everything implemented that you skipped when you're now in stage six. So it's very simplistic. 7 steps to grow the business and to scale the business and to grow the business, but you got to follow each step meticulously. And then you're able to do that, because when you go from 100 patients a day to 300 patients a day, and now it's a good time for you to open up a second or third office, everything is already implemented.
Right.
And it's just a matter of you pulling the trigger. And now you can open up your second office, your third office, your fourth office, whatever that may be for you, as far as your scale diagram that you want for your company. But people jump the steps, they grow too fast, they don't get the right advice, they don't work with the right people, and then all of a sudden they find themselves where they just can't grow. And I think that that's one of the detriments, unfortunately, to most of the business owners, that they don't know their 7 steps, and therefore they're just flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, and truthfully, that's where a consultant comes in. Right.
Mm-hmm.
A consultant doesn't need to change diapers. In fact, if you hire a consultant to change diapers, to change your diaper, to get you motivated to wake up in the morning, you don't need a consultant for that.
You don't.
You need a drill sergeant, or whatever it is, right? You don't need a consultant. But when you get a consultant to be able to help you scale your business, grow your business, and you got to be prepared, right? So that you grow into it. Everyone wants to wait until they can't do anything anymore, and then it starts to go down. Oh, I needed to have more people, and then they go and hire instead of anticipating, knowing where they're going, know when they're going to hire, right? And keep the momentum going as they grow like that, and not put stress on the system, right? Because that's what happens.
So this is really cool. So I'm working with a team, and they're wanting to scale. It's within the chiropractic profession. And I sat down with the owners and I asked them one question. I said, what are the goals and the vision for you to be able to achieve what you want to achieve? So they gave me the numbers, they gave me their plan, they gave me everything else. And this is what I said to them. Everything has to be filtered through that goal. In other words, if you're going to open up a second office because it's going to get you to your $3 million goal, if that's what you want to scale to, if it doesn't fall through the filter, you don't do that. Right. I don't care how good of a deal it sounds. I don't care how wonderful it is. I don't care how much money you're going to make. If you don't filter it through that lens, you're not able to achieve the goal. So decisions have to be made knowing and understanding what the end goal is, and everything has to be filtered through that lens for you to be able to achieve that. So the people that I'm working with, just to give you an example, they wanted to purchase something. It was a high ticket item. And I said, okay, is that going to make you achieve your goal of this that you shared with me? No. Well, then I don't recommend that you do that.
Yeah.
But we make more money. We think that we can just go ahead and buy the world. But if we're not strategic and we don't follow certain protocols and certain procedures and filter it through the lens, we can't achieve that we desire. It'll take us that much longer to do so.
Yeah. And that's such a huge lesson because you know
Mhm.
what? That's going someplace without a map.
That's right.
Yeah. You might get there, but there's certainly very efficient ways to get there and ways to make it happen. But if you stay disciplined, stay focused, right, and keep yourself moving in the direction that you said, the lens that you
Mhm.
want to look through, man, we can all use that, not just in business. How about in our
Yeah.
daily lives?
In our
How
daily
about
lives.
our goals to accumulate? What are
Mhm.
our goals? What does it want to look like when we're 50 years old, when we're 60 years old, when we're 70 years old? Success, we don't land on it, you plan for it, right?
That's it.
And have a plan and work the plan. Man, Ed, I love you, brother. I mean, you are so great. We've kind of hit our time, but
Mhm.
we could go on and on and on. You dropped a ton of information, a ton of pearls of wisdom, and I love it. And you have a new book. Wait, you have a new book out.
I
There it
just
is.
wrote a book. I just wrote a book. It was so funny in my downtime between the franchise when I worked for the franchise and I left. I just needed to download a whole bunch of stuff of all these years. And this book was 45 years in the making. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I just put everything down, and all of a sudden the book came together. And within 3 weeks, Ron, just to show you when things are supposed to be, within 3 weeks, I wrote the book. It wasn't a ghostwriter, it was me. And English is my second language. But I wrote the book. I went to a publisher. They obviously helped me and organized it and whatever else. And the book was done, very quickly. So the book came out a couple of weeks ago. I'm very proud of it. It's just a little, history of, my life basically, and all the ups and downs and all the things that I did that I never knew, do different jobs, that I was going to use in my leadership abilities. And the reason I was a very good leader, and I consider myself a good leader, is because I learned all these lessons when I did 10, 11 jobs, not knowing that those jobs created my character. They gave me then the ability to lead. So that's what the book is about. I think it's a great read, and if
I
you're
love
looking for
it.
something interesting, I think
We
you
have a
should check it
link. We're
out.
going to put the link on the
Yeah,
bottom and the email that goes out. And congratulations, number one.
thank
Number
you.
two is I can just see you lecturing on stages all over the country or the world, not just to chiropractors, but to
Hmm.
business owners. And I think when we can get people in alignment on the principles of business, align those principles to the principles of life, which is
Yes.
aligned to the principles of chiropractic. Now we start having this mushroom that encompasses everything. And it's just beautiful. So, Ed, thank you, man. Thanks for being with me today. And I love and appreciate you. Please tell your bride that Mary and I send our love and hugs. And you look great. And I'm thrilled that what you're doing. And man, it's like all the best. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. And to our audience, thank you. Thanks for coming in, week out, all that you're doing to make this world a better place. Because you know what, with chiropractic and all the love that we give to our people, and it's the most important thing to be connected, but not just connected neurologically, connected also in everything that you do, as Dr. Ed talked about, right? And so please, there are people who need to hear, I feel that could benefit and greatly hearing what Dr. Ed said. And because of you spreading these messages, you're spreading the webcasts, we have grown tremendously. And I want to
Mhm.
thank you for that because that's organically growing and that's what we want. So anyways, we drop these every other week, the Life West, our leadership line. The opposite weeks, we do our Life by Life West with myself and my wife. Thank you for all that you're doing. Remember to keep yourself in balance, as Dr. Ed talked about. Remember that scaling your life, not just your business, but your life,
Mhm.
takes preparation. You have the talent. It takes preparation and knowledge. And sometimes there's other people who can see better, for you than you might, as you're going through the fog. They can navigate you better. But just remember that you have everything you need. You've been equipped all your life to become the successful person that you are going to be. And just reach inside. It's all inside out, as our principal talks about. So until I come back at you, for Dr. Ed and myself, we'll bid you adieu and keep loving those around you. We'll see you at the next Life West Leadership Line. Bye-bye.